Picture yourself walking through an old house that is shaking, and the shadows are moving around in the corners of your eyes. There is a chill in the air that makes you think of old things and stories that haven't been told yet. For hundreds of years, people have been interested in eerie places and the idea that ghosts exist. But what is it about these ghostly figures that draws us in so much? Is it just the thrill of being scared? Or do haunted places offer something deeper and more philosophical? At the heart of this interest is a complicated mix of psychology, philosophical thoughts, and cultural stories. Haunted places, like old buildings and hospitals that have been closed down, are like doors to the unknown that make us question what reality and life are all about. They make people very interested in the future and the idea that ghosts might live on after death. We not only explore the supernatural when we look at these themes, but we also face our darkest fears and doubts about life and the afterlife. Haunted places are more than just creepy. They're real links to the past that are full of stories and memories that don't change over time. When we walk into a haunted house, for example, we're not just entering a room. We're also entering a story about the people who lived there in the past and how they felt. This link to the past is a big part of what makes spooky places interesting. They take us out of the everyday and show us how human experience stays the same across generations. Haunted places are interesting on a spiritual level because they make you think about time, memory, and life. These places often don't seem to follow the normal flow of time, making an area where the past and present dance together in a ghostly way. This lack of clarity about time makes us think about what time is and where we fit in it. Do haunted places hold memories of the past stuck in a loop? Or do they hint at a more complex, multi-layered reality where different times and events mix and overlap? Additionally, haunted places often represent the unfinished parts of people's lives, like unmet goals, unfinished business, and feelings that won't go away. These places are like canvases where the worries and fears of both live and dead people are painted. All of these things tell us that our lives are like a fabric, with many threads of experience that may still affect us after we die. This point of view not only helps us understand spooky places better, but it also makes us more aware of how complicated life is. As figures that live on the edges of our awareness, ghosts give us a unique look into how the mind works. People who believe in ghosts use basic psychological processes like fear of the unknown and the need to make sense of things that don't make sense. On a basic level, ghosts stand for our fears of death and the future. They represent the unknowns that come with these philosophical questions. When you look at it from a psychology point of view, seeing ghosts is just your brain trying to make sense of confusing inputs. When the senses are heightened, like in a dark, quiet room or a lonely setting, the mind may make up ghostly pictures to explain sounds, movements, or feelings that it can't explain any other way. This is called pareidolia, and it shows how our minds are wired to find patterns and give meaning to things that don't seem to have any, even ghosts. Also, believing in ghosts is often a sign of greater mental and emotional problems. Some people see ghosts as a way to deal with ongoing sadness, guilt, or pain by putting their feelings on the outside. So, ghosts can be seen as reflections of our inner world, taking on the problems and worries that we find hard to deal with. This view of ghosts not only helps us understand what we're afraid of, but it also shows how closely our inner feelings are linked to the outside world. The idea of ghosts brings up deep philosophical questions about life, death, and what comes after. People have always been interested in the age-old question of what happens to us after we die. The idea that ghosts might exist suggests that death might not be the end, but rather a change to a different state of being. This idea fits with a lot of religions and philosophical beliefs that there is life after death or a spiritual world beyond this world. From a psychological point of view, believing in ghosts can be seen as a sign that we want to find meaning and connection in a world where people are dying. The idea that the dead can come back as spirits or stay in a state between life and death gives people a sense of continuation that makes death seem less final. It means that our identities and experiences might live on in some way, giving us comfort and a reason to live when we don't know what the future holds. This psychological aspect of seeing ghosts also makes us think about how we understand reality. If ghosts are real, they go against the idea that truth is only what we can see, touch, and measure. Instead, they say that reality might be more complicated and diverse than we think, with parts and events that we don't fully understand yet. Not only does this point of view help us think about things in new ways, but it also makes us more open-minded and curious about the wonders of life. How we think about haunted places and ghosts is largely shaped by the stories we hear about them. In many places and times in history, ghost stories have been a way for people to share their fears, values, and moral lessons. Because they come from different cultures, these stories often show the worries and fears of those cultures. They can help us look at our own beliefs and attitudes. In many cultures, ghosts are seen as moral watchdogs who punish bad people or tell living things about approaching danger. They serve as memories of what happens when people act in an inappropriate way, and how important it is to follow social rules. This moral aspect of ghost stories shows how cultural stories use the supernatural to uphold social rules and values, connecting people's actions to a bigger picture of the universe. Ghosts are also often symbols of voices that are ignored or pushed to the edges of society. People who are upset about things like unfairness, inequality, and oppression may use stories about restless souls who want justice or closure as a way to voice their feelings. By giving these ghostly figures a voice, cultural tales create a place for exploring and talking about unsolved social problems, which can help people get over their problems and get along again. One big reason why we're interested in spooky places and ghosts is the thrill of being scared. From a psychological point of view, fear is a complicated feeling that has evolved to help us spot and deal with possible threats. But the fear that comes from seeing ghosts is not the same as the fear of being in direct physical danger. People feel this kind of fear because they are afraid of the unknown and the supernatural. This kind of fear can be both thrilling and enjoyable, giving us a safe way to face and explore our darkest fears. When we get into a ghost story or go to a spooky place, we're in a safe place where we can feel scared without actually being in danger. This gives us a way to deal with our fears that is both exciting and fun, as well as a chance to learn more about ourselves and grow as people. Fear is fun because it makes us curious about the unknown, which is a basic part of being human. Ghostly sightings and haunted places give us a look into secrets that lie beyond our everyday lives. They encourage us to question and grow our knowledge of reality. Along with the thrill of fear, this sense of wonder and interest is a strong force that draws us to the supernatural and the haunted. When we look into the theory of haunted places and the reality of ghosts, we come across a lot of different cultural, philosophical, and psychological ideas. Haunted places let us see into the past and make us think about time and life in general. Because ghosts are reflections of our fears and wants, they show us how the mind works and what worries us the most. Believing in the supernatural makes us question what we think we know about the world, which makes us more open to the secrets that lie beyond what we know now. At the end of the day, haunted places and ghosts are interesting because they make people wonder about the unknown. They tell us that there are many secrets in the world and that our ideas about what is real are always changing. By thinking about these topics, we not only learn more about the world, but we also gain a deeper understanding of how complicated life is for people. In the end, looking into haunted places and ghosts is a trip into the heart of what it means to be human, a search for answers to the questions that make up our lives. When we think about what haunted places and ghosts mean on a deeper level, we come up with deep questions about what reality is. Metaphysics, the part of philosophy that studies the basic state of being and the world, gives us a way to look at these supernatural events. Are ghosts real things that exist apart from how people see them? Or are they just ideas that come from our minds and are shaped by cultural and psychological factors? One philosophical view says that ghosts might be leftover energy taking different forms. According to this theory, very upsetting or scary events can leave their mark on the environment, causing a kind of echo that sensitive people may see as ghostly figures. This idea goes along with a stone tape theory, which says that houses and other things remember what people do. If this is true, it means that pieces of the past might be stored in some places and be available under certain circumstances. The thought of alternative worlds or other realities is another way to look at things. Some ideas in quantum physics say that there are more than two dimensions that meet. From this point of view, ghosts might be beings from another world that come through into ours. This idea goes against what we usually think about the limits of reality. It suggests that there are more layers to existence, and that different planes sometimes interact with each other. The philosophical study of ghosts and haunted places makes us think about what awareness is and how it works. Some thinkers say that awareness might exist outside of the body, which would mean that it is possible to live on after death. If awareness can exist without the brain, then ghosts might be spirits that aren't attached to bodies that move through the real world. This idea connects philosophy with religious and spiritual views about the soul and the future. It gives us a fuller picture of what it means to be human. Different cultures have very different ideas about ghosts and haunted places, each with its own customs and ways of understanding them. Ghosts are often seen as ancestors or the spirits of the dead who are still tied to the living in many Eastern cultures. Rituals and gifts are often used to respect and honor these ghosts, which shows that people believe life and death are linked. In Western countries, on the other hand, ghosts are often seen as wandering souls who are trying to finish what they started. This story is common in ghost stories and legends, where souls stay because of unsolved problems, unmet wants, or terrible deaths. These kinds of stories are not only fun to read, but they can also teach us moral lessons by showing us how our actions have consequences and how important it is to find closure. Native tribes all over the world also have a lot of stories about ghosts and evil places. For instance, many Native American groups think that ghosts live in nature and see these spirits as guards or relatives. People who hold these views have a strong link to the land and understand that nature has sacred aspects. These differences between cultures show how faith practices, social norms, and the past can affect how people believe in ghosts. They show that everyone wants to understand death and the future, but they also show how different societies deal with these big questions in very different ways. By looking at these cultural stories, we can better understand how people all over the world and throughout history have tried to figure out what life is all about. For a long time, ghosts and cursed places have been interesting to writers and filmmakers, who have used them as strong plot devices. From Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House to modern movies like The Conjuring, these stories are captivating because they play on people's deepest fears and interests. In fiction, haunted houses are often used to represent the mind, with the way the house is built showing how the mind works. The eerie house is used as a metaphor for mental states in these stories that deal with madness, guilt, and fear. In Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, for example, the crumbling house shows how the people who live there are losing their minds, making it hard to tell the difference between physical and mental horror. Haunted places are great for visual and audio scares in movies and TV shows because they make the experience more real and involve all the senses. Films like Paranormal Activity use lighting, sound effects, and camera settings to make people feel more scared and tense, which draws them into the story. These visual forms also let ghosts be explored as complicated people with their own pasts and goals, which gives the magical parts more depth. Fears and worries in society can also be seen in haunted places in the media, which often show modern problems through the lens of the supernatural. For example, the rise of haunted house movies in the 1970s may have been a reaction to changes in society and family relationships. Literature and media give people a safe way to face and work through their fears by exploring these ideas in magical settings. People in the science community have been skeptical and interested in the ideas of haunted places and ghosts. Many scientists don't believe in ghosts because they think they are just people's imaginations, psychological problems, or external factors. But some have tried to use scientific methods to look into these claims. Parapsychology is the study of supernatural events, and many experiments have been done to see if spirit encounters are real. Instruments are often used in these types of studies to find electric fields, changes in temperature, and other strange things that could mean there is a magical presence. Even though the results of these studies are interesting, they are still debatable and are often criticized for not following strict scientific standards. An idea called infrasound, which is made up of low-frequency sound waves that humans can't hear, could explain ghost reports. Infrasound can make people feel uneasy, anxious, or even have dreams, which could be why some places seem haunted. Some things in the environment, like drafts, floors that creak, and electricity problems, can also make a place seem evil. Even though there isn't enough solid scientific proof, people and experts alike are still interested in looking into haunted places. This ongoing investigation shows how there is a conflict between what we know from experience and our desire to believe in the supernatural. It shows how complicated the human experience is, since deep-seated views and gut feelings about the unknown combine with logical answers. Our ideas about eerie places and ghosts are shaped in large part by personal events and stories. These first-person tales, from regular people or ghost hunters, tell interesting stories that push the limits of what we think is real. A lot of people say that in eerie places they hear strange noises, see ghosts, and feel like they are being watched. People who go through these things often have very personal situations that can have a big effect on them. Some people see these meetings as proof that there is life after death, which gives them comfort and a sense of being connected to loved ones who have died. For others, they leave more questions than solutions, a sense of the unknown and strange that last. Paranormal hunters, like those on TV shows like Ghost Hunters, are skeptical, but also willing to be open-minded about their findings. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP recordings, and infrared cameras are just some of the tools and methods they use to record and study ghostly events. Even though their results aren't always clear, the research process itself helps us learn more about and make sense of these strange events. Personal accounts are powerful because they can show how people feel and think when they have ghostly encounters. In spite of science answers and traditional stories, they tell us that the spiritual is a truly human experience that comes from our fears, dreams, and need to connect with others. Hearing and respecting these stories helps us understand haunted places and ghosts in a deeper, more sophisticated way. In the end, looking into haunted places and the possibility of ghosts makes us more open to the wonder that is at the heart of being human. It forces us to face our fears, question what we think we know, and be open to options that go beyond what we normally think of as real. No matter how we look at them as leftover forces, mental images, or beings from other worlds, ghosts give us a unique way to understand how complicated life is. With all of their history, feeling, and mystery, haunted places tell us that the world is full of amazing things just waiting to be found. As they say, we should go through life with an open mind and heart, and we should treat the unknown with respect and awe. By doing this, we not only learn more about the supernatural, but we also gain a deeper appreciation for how complex and rich human life is. As we continue to look into these ideas, let us remember that the trip into the supernatural isn't just about finding answers. It's also about being open to the questions. This book is about appreciating the beauty and complexity of what we don't know and discovering meaning and relationship in the secrets that make up our lives.